On this episode of Creature Meets Culture, we meet a town in need of a miracle, a musher destined to lead dogs to greatness, and a sled dog so legendary he has statues and a movie made about him, and according to Time magazine, is the most heroic animal of all time.
Okay, is it Balto?
It's not Balto! I got you.
What?
Okay, it's not Balto. It's the story of Togo. Have you heard Togo?
No, that sounds kinda
Okay.
like Balto.
It sounds kind of like Balto, and I'm so glad that you said that because indeed it is about the Nome Serum Run that Balto is famous for because he is the one with his musher who crossed the finish line and brought in the medicine to save a whole town. But Togo was a 12-year-old sled dog and is credited with doing the most dangerous portion, and that this would have never happened without him and his musher. So for like decades and decades, Togo's musher, his owner, was like super upset and disheartened that Balto got all of this credit when he did like this really simple, easy leg of the race. And Togo is the one that did the hardest, the longest, the most out of any other dog. And he largely wasn't known about until very recently. So I'm so excited. But yes, it's the same topic, but not
So
Balto.
they were like teammates, like, they were fighting for the same cause kind of a situation.
Completely, yeah, they were fighting for the same cause, and Balto still did do an amazing thing, and not to take away from Balto, good animation movie. I feel like that's the only
That's literally the only thing I know about it.
I think it's the only thing most people know about it, but, yeah, no, not Balto.
Okay, the real Balto is what we're learning about,
The real
like,
Balto,
the better the better Balto.
but Balto 2.0. We forgot to introduce ourselves. My name is Debbie. Welcome to Creature Meets Culture, a podcast where we dive into how animals and humans have interacted throughout history. I'm here with my best friend. I'd feel bad
Hello,
saying your name. You introduce
hello,
yourself.
it's Haley, I'm just here, I'm crocheting a sweater, and I'm ready to hear some awesome animal stories.
Savannah is not here for this episode because it is very late where she's at. So it's just me and Haley today.
Just the 2 of us.
Just okay, so jumping back into what makes Siberian Huskies unique, they were originated mhm, they were originated in Siberia's far northern regions near the Bering Strait. They were developed by the Chukchi people over millennia, specifically designed for transportation. And throughout history, they have supported semi-nomadic Chukchi in hunting, fishing, and trapping tasks. But they really became famous in the 1925 Nome Serum Run, which is the subject of our story today.
Wait, that's, like, when they got their start with, like, fame?
Yeah, that's when they really became well known. So up until this point, Alaskan Malamutes were often used for sled dog racing and transportation runs and stuff. And it was really the character that we'll be learning about today, Leonhard Seppala, that popularized the use of Siberian Huskies. They were pretty underestimated, mostly because they were like really small compared to Alaskan Malamutes. They
Mm.
averaged in 35 to 50-pound range, which when you think of like a sled dog, that's a lot smaller than I think I typically would think of. Future Debbie here to clarify that female Siberian Huskies are 35 to 50 pounds. Male Siberian Huskies are 45 to 60 pounds. So I was wrong.
Have they been bred since then to be bigger? Because I feel like I've never seen a husky that was small enough to be, like, 30 to 40 pounds.
It might not have been a Siberian Husky. I feel like there's a lot of different types of Huskies.
Okay, true, true. Good point. So, were they not popular, like, in the States as pets before this? Is this what gave them, like, more popularity as house dogs?
Yeah, you know what? I don't completely know, but from what I've read for this episode, it seems like yes. It seems like specifically the Siberian Husky, it wasn't like a huge part of society up until this point, but I can look that up more and correct myself if I need to. But it appears so, yeah.
That's super interesting. That's like
Y
they had this big story and everybody heard about it, and then people are like, "Ooh, I want that kinda dog."
I feel like that happens a lot with animals, though. I know that this isn't
No,
the
it
best
does.
example, but, like, I feel like corgis have really, like, surged in popularity because of the
It's the
internet recently.
internet and, like, social media and cute corgi butt videos. Now it's like
Yes.
corgi all the rage.
Yeah, so, like, that's definitely for sure a thing, and I am getting ahead of myself, but sled dog, like, racing and, like, mushers and their dog teams really had this golden era during this time of, like, the 19 like, it's early 90s. They
Mhm.
had this just, like, raging popularity, so I'm sure that, yeah, after this story, everybody read about the Siberian Huskies, and they were like, mhm, that's what I want. Made
Just in
for
case
me."
I ever need my household pet to carry me long distances or bring me special serums.
I know, I think of that when I see, like, Huskies in San Diego. I'm like, "What are they doing for you?"
It's so true, it's very hot here, and they look hot. They look hot all the time.
They do, they do look hot. Okay, we're not even talking about our
Okay, let's
story. We haven't even
rewind.
got well, I guess we are kind of talking about our story. So, some other fun facts about Siberian Huskies, their hearts beat really fast, 190 to 211 beats per minute while they're working, and they have an interesting feature of a metabolic switch. They switch from muscle glycogen to fat metabolism, which is why they can go for such long amounts of times when other dogs would give out. They can just keep on going, which makes them really, really favorable and attractive for this kind of work, obviously.
Wow, that's weird.
Isn't that interesting? I know all these things you don't know, and this might be true of some other sled dog breeds as well, but for sure it's true for Siberian Huskies. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to get into our story. I know that, yeah, we talked a little tiny bit about it, but our story today takes place in Nome, Alaska, which is way up there. It's 2 degrees south of the Arctic Circle. It's on the southern shore of the Seward Peninsula. So just think like very far north and very far west. Just out. Yeah, just Alaska.
Very, very northwest.
Yeah. In 1900, Nome was Alaska's largest city with a population of 12,488 people, most of whom came to search for gold. But the gold rush was pretty short lived and the population steadily declined. By 1925, the population had decreased to 1,430 residents. The Nome had no roads connecting it to the rest of Alaska. In fact, Nome still doesn't have any roads connecting it to the rest of Alaska. The only way in and out is either at the time was through steamship and now today is by air and ships, obviously. From August to October, which so like for a few months out of the year, the steamship, could get through the water to get to Nome with, like, supplies and people and everything, but from November to July, the water was completely frozen over and the roads were completely frozen over, so there's no way in and out of Nome for most of the year, from November to July. Um,
So
today
they had to, like, stockpile everything they did?
Yeah, so they stockpiled everything. The residents of the town were pretty expert in this. I read 2 different books. One was called The Cruelest Miles, and the other one that I read was called Seppala, the Alaskan Dog Driver was the other one that I read. And in The Cruelest Miles, I believe there is a portion of the book, I don't have the quote written down, but they talked about the preparation for these months. And the residents obviously had to be like experts in this. So they would close up their keyholes, they would stock up all of their food, they would, like, get completely ready to, like, just totally bunker down, and it worked for the town. I say that there was no access in and out, but there was access exclusively through the sled dogs. So, sled dog culture, like, or the purpose of sled dogs was completely essential to the town of Nome because for these 8 months, sled dogs were the only, like, guaranteed way in and out, so they had that to, like, fall back on, but largely, no, they would have all of their supplies stocked up and just not expect to have anything brought in or taken out.
Kind of makes sense why after the gold was depleted, most everybody peaced out.
Truly, nothing was holding a lot of people there, um yeah, yeah, it does make sense. The Iditarod Trail was their only connection to the outside world during this time. The trail network consisted of roughly 2,400 miles of paths connecting mines, trading posts, and settlements from Seward to Nome. The primary trail measured 938 miles in length, and the Iditarod Trail followed pre-existing native trails in the interior of Alaska. In parts of western Alaska, east of the Unalakleet and along the coast, the Iditarod followed ancient routes traveled by the Inupiaq and Yupik people. Indigenous peoples had used these routes for hunting, trading, and traveling between villages for thousands of years. And in 1925, when our story takes place, the Iditarod was in the middle of its heyday. Many towns relied on the trail for dogs to carry their mail, supplies, and goods to their destination. And so it was true for Nome that they depended on this, but Nome wasn't the only town. There were a lot of towns similar to this that depended on the route during the colder months of the year.
And the route is called the Iditarod?
Yes, the entire route is called the Iditarod Trail, which would later become the race that I feel like we've all
Yeah,
read about in elementary school. Did you learn
yeah.
about the Iditarod a lot in elementary school? Because I did.
I do remember it as a race, which is why I asked, like, "Oh, that's the actual name of the route."
Hmm.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense now.
Okay, so we are going to be spending most of our time with a man named Leonhard Seppala. He was 5 feet and 4 inches tall and was born on September 14th in 1877 in Shibaten, Norway, which is 600 miles north of the Arctic Circle. So this guy was a cold man, a very, very cold man.
Wait, how can you be north of the Arctic Circle?
All right, look, I had this question myself, and I'll be honest, there was just a lot of facts in this story that I was like, she probably won't ask a question about that. So I
Wait,
just went
does
my merry way,
does it
but I don't know.
it must mean, like, where the Arctic Circle begins, maybe, like, the southern line of it? I'm just when you said Arctic Circle, I just thought the northeast place you could go, and then you said north of that, so I was like, "What?"
Like a lot of miles north of that. Yeah, I'm wondering if Arctic Circle is just like a line. Well, now I want to know.
Well, it's the I don't know how to explain it. It's a circle, like, at the top
Yeah,
of the yeah.
yeah. So
So
I'm saying it's probably just north of that line of where it starts. It's just
yes,
within that.
that's right, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay, so Sapala was the youngest of 5 children in a family of blacksmiths and fishermen. He worked on his father's fishing boat, the Leviathan, from age 12 and apprenticed at his father's smithy. Isn't that fun that it's called a smithy?
Oh my goodness, I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's so
Like,
fun.
a blacksmith's shop is called a
Mhm.
smithy?
Yeah,
Wow, that it sounds a lot cuter than it is,
I
probably.
know. It sounds very cute. I feel like, yeah, I would love to go work at a smithy, but actually, I would not love to go work at a smithy.
Can you imagine? I can't
No. In fact, I don't think anybody wants me working at a smithy. I would be a terrible blacksmith. Okay.
yeah.
In 1900, at age 22, Sapala went to Alaska to search for gold. His friend Japhet Lindeberg, a fellow Norwegian, had struck it rich in Nome and returned to Norway in Christmas of 1899 to recruit workers for his pioneer mining company. Paula was like, "Oh my goodness, I also want to be rich and have a bunch of gold." He followed him to he followed him to Alaska in hopes of finding sudden wealth. By 1914, Seppala was still working for Lindeberg's mining company with no sign of gold or wealth in sight. But there was an explorer named Amundsen, and he was planning a North Pole expedition. Lindeberg was asked to provide dogs and equipment and acquired a team of Siberian Huskies imported from the Chukchi people of Siberia's northeast coast. Lindeberg Lindeberg assigned Seppala to train these dogs, and Seppala was his employee, so he was like, okay, sure. But he had no experience training dogs, let alone sled dogs. This was not his career or like what he really was signing up for.
He's like, "Hey, you're a blacksmith. You know about dogs, right?"
You can do this. My thought is they probably just didn't have a lot of people to pick from, and they're like, I'm paying this guy, so might as well.
Yeah, I guess so.
But Seppala would, as we know now that we're telling this story, he would end up becoming quite a legend. This was a unique thing for Seppala to even train Siberian Huskies because, like I said before, Alaskan Malamutes were the preferred breed. So not only has Seppala never done this before, but also he's using a breed that like most mushers and trainers wouldn't be using. The Malamutes weighed twice as much as the Siberian Huskies, and when World War One broke out, Amundsen's expedition was canceled, but they still had all of these dogs in Nome under Lindeberg's care. And so Lindeberg gave the dogs to Seppala, be like, we don't need these anymore, but we also don't want them. So congratulations, you have a bunch of sled dogs. Most mushers considered 30 miles a long run, but Seppala routinely traveled 50 to 100 miles per day, working up to 12 hours on the trail. And he trained his dogs during the summer by having them pull a cart on wheels. It turned out that Seppala just was completely destined for sled dog training and racing. During this time, like I said before, it was like a really popular time for dog sledding just in history. And the All Alaska Sweepstakes were the first was the first race of its kind. It is considered to be a precursor to the Iditarod race that we learned about in elementary school. And the sweepstakes was a race from Nome, Alaska to Candle and then back to Nome, totaling 408 miles along the Bering Strait.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a long time. And Seppala actually won 3 years in a row from 1915 to 1917. And at age 47, he was regarded as the finest musher in all of Alaska.
Okay, I gotta ask, is it musher, like mush, or musher, like mush?
Well, it's musher, Musher.
But
How would you
do
say?
you hear the nuance? No, I'm just
No,
wondering.
I don't hear the nuance at all. It sounds exactly the same what you're saying. What? Wait, say it one more time. You said musher or musher?
Yes, yes, that's what I said. So, like, would you say, like, the oatmeal is mushy, or would you say it's mushy?
Ooh, it's
Mush?
mushy.
Okay, that makes sense why you're saying it like that then.
What
Okay.
would you say
I've
it's mushy?
I've always
What?
I've always heard in terms of sled dogs, I talk about sled dogs all the time. And when I talk about them, I always heard it mush, like, that's what you tell them to do. You say mush, and then it sounds like me, but I'm just wondering if I've been saying it wrong all these years.
Well, I am also an expert in sled dog racing, so my oatmeal is mushy and they are mushing, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, well, now I don't know. Oh my goodness.
I don't know either. I don't know either. I'm not sure. That's why I asked.
Musher, musher.
Mush?
Musher sounds
Mush.
right now that you say it. Musher, musher. Is it that different?
It's
Musher,
it's not that different. It's very
musher. I'm a musher. I feel like you're right. I think it's a musher. I feel like
You're
my
gonna like
oatmeal might
you're
be
gonna
mushy.
how you're gonna change how you say it, and then we're
Say
gonna
it again.
find out later that it was actually mush.
Musher, mush. You know what? I'm in a time in my life where I am committing. I am going to commit to mushing.
Commit.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
just double
committing.
d yeah,
I love
yes.
it being incorrect. So,
I respect it. Okay, consider mushing.
all right. Yes, for the mushings. Yeah. So now we're all caught up on Leonhard Seppala's story up to this point, and he is now the best. He is like the top at the top of his game.
And any of, like, jobs or ventures he had going on in Alaska, they've just fallen by the wayside. He's now committed his life to the sled dogs.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was like it is definitely at this point of career because he would do transportation runs. So with his sled dog teams, he could take mail out of town or like, yeah, in that 8 months, he could be like doing trading post runs and stuff like that. So it is like a solid way of living.
Hmm, okay.
Togo, now our good friend Togo's coming in. Togo was born in 1913 to one of Sapala's lead dogs and a female Siberian import. Sapala named Togo after, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, Togo Heihachiro. He was an underdog Japanese admiral and naval hero who led Japan to victory in the Russo-Japanese War. I don't know totally why he chose that name, but I'm sure if you're naming dogs left and right, you're probably just you can go crazy. You can do
It's
whatever
like,
you want, probably.
I've got a lot of dogs. I'm gonna get creative with, war heroes and such.
As a puppy, Togo required nursing and extra care because of painful throat disorder he had. Sapala's wife, Constance, nursed him back to health, and Togo would soon grow to be a healthy, mischievous, and quite frankly, very behaviorally difficult young adult. He was just like a punk puppy, which I feel like a lot of puppies are, but
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, it is. But Togo was no different. He was like extra punk-y for Seppala, and that probably is saying something at this point because he had like done this for a minute. He just to explain what he looked like really quickly because he's the star of our show, obviously, today. He had a dark brown coat mixed with cream, black, and gray markings and ice blue eyes. And as a puppy, Togo was just really bold and rowdy and difficult. And Seppala judged him early on to be unfit for sledding and didn't believe that he could be successful on any of Seppala's teams. So, because Seppala didn't really see a future with Togo, he tried giving him away as a pet to a friend and Togo literally jumped out a glass window to escape and go back to Sapala's sled dogs.
Like, slow motion action movie just, like, busted out of a window and, like, shards are flying, and he's running back.
Actually, yes. So this is later in my story, but they have ended up making a Disney Plus movie about Togo with Willem Dafoe, and they only made it back in like 2019. It's like pretty recent. And yes, it is literally a slow motion moment with like Disney Plus music and everything with Togo jumping out a glass window. It's like, I gotta get back to the dogs.
Did you watch it?
I did watch it, and I actually watched it several times, like way before like I this has ever was a thing. And they have since taken it down off of Disney Plus in that wave of like taking down all the movies that like didn't perform extra great, which makes me so sad because I love all of those movies and there have been many times where I've gone back to, like, watch stuff, and then it's not there anymore. So, Togo is one of those movies, unfortunately. I tried to go back and watch it for, like, preparing for this, uh, episode, and, that's when I found out that it's not on there anymore, and I wrote a little note to Disney Plus that I would like Togo back, please.
Oh my
So
gosh, you did!
I did. So maybe one day somebody will be able to listen to this podcast and then also go watch Togo. And if they do, it's because I emailed them one time.
If everyone who's listening writes an email to Disney Plus and tells them, "This is an outrage. We would need
He
Togo to
actually
be
is.
celebrated and well represented, then maybe we can make some positive change in this crazy world.
You know what? It's true though, because it was seen as like such a huge step towards like the truth is out there, people. It's Togo, not Balto. And it was so well made. And now here we are, Togo-less. So sad. Okay, so yeah, so anyways, he jumped out a window, but it wasn't the only time he would escape his like living quarters in order to join the teams. Just picturing because this happened several times. Seppala would be taking his dogs out on a practice or on a run or whatever. And Togo would be back at the kennels because he wasn't part of the team. He would escape the kennels and go join Seppala and the team and just run alongside them.
Oh, it's like a kid who gets, like, benched and can't play, and he's like, Come on, coach, put me in."
Put me in, coach, put me in. No, truly, and Sapala, like I would be, I'm sure, was annoyed and was like, "What the heck, dude? Just no." But he kept on doing it and, like, literally did nothing could stop him. They would, like, make the security better, and still he would run out and join them. Finally, Sapala had had enough, and he gave in and harnessed Togo to a wheel position, which is, like, right in front of the sled. He did this totally with the intention of wearing him out. He's like, "Okay, you want a taste of your own medicine? You've got it." And he hooked him in, and immediately Togo just thrived. And Sapala, because he's such a good musher, now I don't know how to say it.
I'm sorry.
A musher, that is how you say it.
Yeah, that's great. Perfect.
So Sapala, being an expert, was like, "Ooh, he's really good at this." And he would later write in this is from the Dog Driver book. "I finally understood what Togo had been wanting all of these months, to be a member of the team." And so during this trip to Dime Creek, Sapala moved Togo through the team throughout this run, and by the end of the journey, Togo was sharing the lead position with Rusky, Sapala's experienced lead dog. So immediately Togo was just like, this is my life. I'm gonna do this forever. And he's 8 months old at this point.
Oh my goodness, wow. So he just rose in the ranks that quickly because he was a little star.
You know what he reminds me of? Okay, so we've been, for listeners who don't know this about us, we've both been preschool teachers and are not currently, but have been. And I feel like this energy reminds me of like the really difficult kids in classes that like you come to just they're your absolute favorite because you have to spend so much time with them, but also they're like the most challenging. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yeah, that is totally a thing. Like, at the end of every year, people would be like, "Oh, who are you gonna miss the most? Like, who's your favorite?" And it's always the kid that gave you the most trouble because
Yes, every single time.
you end up loving them because you had to give them so much, like, special attention and, like, work with them so closely that you end up falling in love with them even though they were such a pain in the butt.
And it's unimaginable, like, at the beginning of the year, you're like, "This child is the reason I myself sleep at night. I will never, ever love them." And then at the end of the year, it's like, "How will I live without them? Like, what will I do? Like, what will occupy my life?"
That was Togo. He was a struggler, and he like, it's those kids that they just need, like, their thing. It's like they
Yes.
find a sport or some kind of activity that they're, like, really good at, and then it's like, "Okay, all my crazy behavior is, like, channeled into this one thing."
Yes, like, that is totally it, and it's a really good thing that Togo had this because, like, I feel like 9 times out of 10, dogs that are like this are, like, in homes, and so it's like, well, what do? You know? It's like yeah, so anyways, he Yeah, he did. He did totally find his thing. On his first official day in harness, Togo ran over 75 miles, which is considerably longer than sled dogs could typically run. And Togo would become Seppala's lead dog and Seppala's absolute favorite. The two shared a really, really, really incredible bond. And Seppala would write, I had found a natural born leader, something I had tried for years to breed, which is from the Cruelest Miles book. They worked together up until 1925. They would mostly work together on provision runs for the Pioneer Mining Company. I couldn't find any records of Togo being involved in races with Seppala, but up when this story takes place, he had been Seppala's lead dog for 7 years at this point.
Oh, wow.
So, um, in 1925, Dr. Curtis Welch was Nome's only doctor. In preparation for the port closure, he had ordered diphtheria, which I just found out right before we recorded. I have like a little pronunciation guide for the things in this episode, and I was reading it over to kind of prepare. I have been saying diphtheria this entire time, and it's diphtheria. Did you know that?
I did not know that, and I also have said diphtheria, but maybe, like, once in my life because how often are you talking about diphtheria?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna be saying it, like, a million times in the next 20 minutes, so
Is it an F or is it a PH?
it's a PH.
That's where the confusion came in.
Yes, because it when you just look at the word, you miss the H in between the P and the T because it's like it's diphtheria,
Mhm.
DIPH, but when you just look at it, it looks like diphtheria because it just looks like, it's kinda one of those, like, alphabet sneezy words where it's like.
There's just a lot of stuff going on in here.
Yeah. So, anyways, diphtheria. Dr. Welch had ordered the serum with plenty of time to have it for winter, but the serum, whoa, there's
Cerium.
all sorts of words I can't pronounce. What can I pronounce? The serum didn't come and the port closed for the 1925 winter, but this really wasn't of huge concern to Welch because he hadn't seen a confirmed case of diphtheria in his 18 years of practicing medicine in Alaska. So he was like, "What?"
What was the problem? Like, is this, like, an Amazon order that just doesn't show up or what?
Yeah, I mean, they do get like they have everything that they order and that they want, but I can imagine it's like the supply is limited or maybe the communication is off or whatever. I don't know. From everything that I could read, Dr. Welch was like a really good doctor. Like it wasn't like a case of neglect. And it doesn't really seem like nobody is blaming anybody on either end. Like it just seems like one of those things that sometimes something can't get filled or something can't be found or whatever. And
Seems
they,
all risky whenever you're ordering for, like, a whole 8-month period.
yeah. But then also, okay, I feel like the other side of it is that, like, yes, it's totally risky, but also this was their reality. Like, for some of these people, like, decades. So, they were probably really used to, like, what they could swing and what they couldn't, and because there, like, hadn't been a case of this in, like, 20 years, they're like, "Man, whatever," like, not a priority.
So let me guess, now there's a case of this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, I do also wanna note that they did have some expired antitoxin, but even with that, they had only enough for 6 patients. So, it was old and they didn't have a lot. And yes, you did guess correctly. They did get a case in December 1924. So, after the port closed, they got their first cases. It was actually 2 Inupiaq children, and I'm so sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. As always, I feel just like a blanket statement for this podcast. I'm probably gonna explain or say a lot of things incorrectly, even things that I have heard of before and have read for years. I still can't say those words right. So, anyways, I'm sorry in advance.
We're all just trying our best over
We
here.
really are. So, 2 children died from diphtheria. because their symptoms were not caught in time. And on January 20th, Billy Barnett, a 3-year-old boy, died 2 weeks after becoming ill, making it the town's first recorded death. The cases throughout this story, the records of the indigenous people are cited separately from the records of the European settlers who lived in Nome. And so I will do my best to share both of those numbers from here on out. So the two indigenous children, their cases were not officially recorded because of that separation. So Billy Barnett, because he lived in the town and because he was white, he is considered the first case. However, he was not. Yeah. So I wrote it out in here. I was like, this is only the second episode, and this is the second time that we've had to talk about just the big differences and ways people are treated depending on where they come from.
That's that's gonna come up a lot,
Yeah. It's
when you're talking about history.
honestly, people just kind of suck all throughout history. Come on. We got to pull it together, people.
That's
Okay. So Welch had initially diagnosed Billy Barnett with tonsillitis. Um, But and which is why they couldn't catch the symptoms in time, so the next
Wait, I thought
case,
you said he was a good doctor. He just misdiagnosed him.
he did misdiagnose him. I know, but come on, sometimes people, I don't know, give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't know. It was cold up there, okay? Maybe his brain was feeling a little funny. Okay. The next case, Bessie Stanley, who was a 7-year-old girl, presented all the symptoms, including fever, chills, a sore throat, difficulty breathing, and most famously for diphtheria, a gray membrane forming in her throat.
Ugh.
In a desperate attempt to save her, Welch administered some of the antitoxin that was expired, but it was too late and she died several hours later. We're already in the depressing part, so while we're being depressing, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what diphtheria is. It is an airborne illness caused by the bacterium Corynebacterium diphtheriae, and it causes tissues in the respiratory system to die, forming a thick gray pseudomembrane in your throat. Yeah, it's just a mucousy, thick gray thing. And the leading cause of mortality with diphtheria is airway obstruction or suffocation because of this gray membrane. And it can extend into your larynx and trachea, and once the membrane is formed, it can't be dislodged. If it is, it causes almost every single time instant death because of the bleeding that immediately chokes you. You choke on your own blood.
Wow, truly horrific.
Horrific way to die. Horrific way to die. And it happens really fast and it's airborne. So it's like
Do
if
they know how those first 2 indigenous children got it, like, where it came from?
No, no, there's no. Yeah, it's not known where it came from. This is pure speculation, but I mean, there is still a lot of travel that's happening. So it's very possible that, there is another town somewhere along that trail that had it and had the antitoxin, or I don't know. In the 1920s, before widespread vaccination, fatality rates could reach 60% without any serum. As soon as Bessie Stanley died, Welch called, this is one day after another between Billy and Bessie. Welch called Nome's mayor to arrange an emergency town council meeting to find some type of solution. They immediately implemented a quarantine, and the next day, Welch sent radio telegrams to all other major towns in Alaska and requested antitoxin from the governor of the Alaska Territory in Juneau, as well as the U.S. Public Health Service. Nome's population at this time was approximately 10,000 people, and this included the surrounding area, but that is a lot of people to have this vulnerable to a disease with no cure. I mean, not no cure, but nothing.
No
And
available.
yeah, no available cure. Thank you. So by the end of January, there were over 20 confirmed cases of diphtheria and at least 50 more people at risk or like within immediate proximity to these people. And the cases were just growing by the day. The nearest supply of working antitoxin was in Anchorage, which was 1,000 miles away. And even though Nome's port was frozen, the nearest railroad station was 675 miles away in Nenana. So that became like the closest place that they could get the antitoxin to, where Nome would have to go get it there. So at another emergency board of health meeting a couple days after the first one, it was determined that a team of the best mushers and their sled dogs would complete the life-saving mission to retrieve the antitoxin from Nenana and return it to the town of Nome. And we have our backdrop for the story.
Enter Togo and his crew.
And here's Musher. Okay, so the antitoxin was shipped by train from Anchorage to Nenana, and dog sled teams were set to cargo across the 674 miles. Governor Boone was the one who organized a relay of 20 mushers and more than 150 dogs staggered along the route and relay the medicine. And there was one specific stretch that was by far the most difficult. Given that Seppala was the most experienced and respected musher, it was a no-brainer that he would take this leg of the race. His team would handle a dangerous section of the route, traveling roughly 260 miles round trip from Nome towards Nenana, which is by far the longest that any of the mushers of the comprised assigned teams would be traveling. The Norton Sound was the feared feature in this leg of the race. Norton Sound was a 42-mile stretch of frozen sea ice that constantly shifted with ocean currents and wind. The ice ranged from pressure ridges to wind-polished surfaces, where dogs not only would struggle for traction, but flows would often be formed. Do you know what a flow is? Because I actually did not know until I was researching this podcast.
I do not know what a flow is, not in terms of like sea ice.
It's just whenever, like in movies, when they're like walking over a thick thing of ice that's like over water, and then it breaks and they're like on like their own little ice island.
Yes,
So
like a little floaty iceberg situation.
yes, so that little ice island is called a flow.
Interesting. That's strange because it's not flowing.
It's
Whenever you say
floating.
float, why wouldn't it be called a float?
Oh, you're right. You know what? I don't know. Take it up with the flow namers. Yes, so the Norton Sound is really what was like the most challenging part of this, understandably. But right after Norton Sound was a place called Little McKinley Mountain, and um, it was 1,000-foot elevation gain, which doesn't sound like crazy terrible, except it happens like it's like unrelenting, like the climb, and it goes on for a mile long above the tree line. And so you're like just completely exposed to to all of the nature that is
That
there, and it's can be really brutal. Yeah, so
that sounds like a good time.
I know, and then you're, like, all alone, and it's just like, "Oh my gosh." Um, yeah, so another thing I didn't mention about Norton Sound is that in this area, because it's an inlet essentially, the wind speeds could reach 70 to 80 miles per hour with wind chill, driving temperatures below -80 degrees Fahrenheit.
-80?
Yes, and it happens during this, trip but yeah, -80. Can you imagine anything that cold at all?
No, that's like incomprehensible. I can't even imagine.
And these dogs are in San Diego, California.
I know. Wonder they always look so hot and they're panting.
They're like, "My ancestors had it way better than me."
Like, I was built for something else.
Yeah. Okay, so an east wind could push ice floes completely out to sea. So, like, it's just a gnarly scene. Seppala had previously done this route in 4 days, averaging 81 miles per day, but like it still was a really, really, really challenging like thing for him too that he um didn't have much time to prepare for, but definitely would have to use like all of his skills for. And it was a no-brainer for Seppala that he would have his very best dog at the lead for this mission. Go. Good old Togo. Okay, so January 27th is when the relay began. At Nanana, Monsieur Wild Bill Shannon, I put Wild Bill in quotation marks, Wild Bill Shannon picked up a 20-pound bundle containing the life-saving antitoxin from the train station. It was wrapped in furs and skins to protect it from the weather, but also from any damage that would be done, obviously, on this very not chill trip. On January 28th, Seppala received a phone call instructing him to head east towards Shaktuluk, which was 170 miles away, to join the relay. Seppala prepared his team and they departed. Temperatures at this point were 65 degrees below zero and getting colder. Charlie Evans got caught in an icy fog so thick that he couldn't see his lead dogs. His team attempted to cross a river and found water seeping through the ice. Several of his dogs collapsed from frostbite, and Evans strapped the serum into his sled and took the lead himself because his dogs were so weak and pulling his entire team while they recovered.
Oh my gosh, wait, like, he was pulling the sled? It like,
Yes, yes. He was
oh my,
pulling like, he was the lead dog because his dogs couldn't do it.
that's crazy.
And, he himself developed frostbite on his face, and he lost 3 dogs due to exhaustion on his leg of the relay.
That's so sad.
This is like a story about Togo, but it's like there's so many dogs involved in this that it's like,
Yeah, like, why is Togo even the hero? Like, it should be all of them.
it's all of the participation trophies for everybody.
They didn't just
We're
participate.
millennials, okay? Everybody gets a prize, everybody gets a book, everybody gets a movie.
They lost their lives, for goodness sake. They should be remembered. They tried really hard.
Nobody understands them. But it's true, you're not wrong. Okay, so Shannon covered 50 and arrived at his handoff at 11 a.m. on January 28th. And it's this story at this point is already gaining traction. It's like sled dogs are already like super famous at this point in time. And I think this story like had all of the ingredients for like a viral story of the time. I mean, if this happened today, it would also well, this wouldn't happen today, but yeah,
If there was TikTok back then, it would be all over it. Like,
all over TikTok.
what's gonna happen next? Tune in to my next video or whatever. I don't have one, but it sounds like something.
Yeah, it's correct. You're right, you're right. Okay. So Governor Bone changed the locations of the roadhouses where the mushers would trade off the serum to ensure that the mushers and their teams could be fresher and faster, but he unfortunately made this decision after Seppala had already headed, like, left towards his, like, meeting point, and after Seppala left was when Governor Bone made these changes, and so he was going to a place that, wasn't gonna have what he needed. The rendezvous point was now in Shaktuluk, which is 95 miles closer, but Sapala didn't know that, and they were really gambling on the idea that the musher could meet him, but what was so unpredictable about this was that the weather was so bad, he couldn't even see the team in front of him, like, during a true whiteout, you can't see, like, anywhere. So Seppala could be running right by the musher who's supposed to meet him, and he wouldn't even know.
Not planned out very well,
Yeah, I mean, they were trying to save a town, so, um,
I guess. Also, how were they communicating? There were phones back then at like in the middle of the forest?
I don't know, I'm sure.
That's fine. I'm just wondering.
Okay, so this didn't happen though. They didn't pass by each other. They ran into each other. Ivanov had the serum. And when Seppala ran into him along the track, or along the trail, Ivanov was helping his dogs who had been spooked by a reindeer. And so he like had to like untangle them from like their stuff because they got all scared.
Wait, these dogs are supposed to be like the bravest, the tritest, the truest, and they got scared by a reindeer? Like
Well,
one of Santa's little help.
look, I feel like you and I would also be scared of a reindeer, okay? Come on. They're just little dogs.
But they're supposed to be delivering a life-saving serum. Keep your eye on the prize, you guys. Like, don't get sidetracked by wilderness creatures.
Seppala found them, and the exchange of the serum was made. In order to get to this point, Seppala had to cross the Norton Sound already. So he had already done that really, really sketchy leg of the race once, but now he had to turn around and do it again. And the weather conditions were getting worse. A storm was approaching on the Gulf of Alaska, and Seppala knew this, he saw it, and he had two choices. Either take the long route around Norton Sound, which would add at least a full day, or take the shortcut across the Sound's unstable ice. And Seppala, likely thinking of everybody back home and the urgency of the situation, took the shortcut and headed across Norton Sound. At this point, they're in near total darkness, and Togo is leading the team. He led them onto the ice. I also want to note here, I think I did not mention this part yet. At the time that this race took place, Togo is 12 years old.
That is actually crazy. Like,
He's 12.
like I have a dog who's 13, and I am like every time anything happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna die. Oh my god. Like I'm just
So sad.
because that's just like whenever people ask how old is she, and I say 13, they're like, and I'm like, I know, stop.
That's such a sad.
It is sad because
I know
it's like,
exactly the awe you're talking about.
yeah, it's like, no, she's getting old. That's
There's,
sad.
like, nothing comforting you could say. It's like, "Oh,
No, I
thankfully."
mean, she's still doing great. But yeah, like 12, 13, that's when people start saying, oh, whenever you tell them your dog's age. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and yeah, it is, like, it's really incredible, and he's, like, been working this whole time. Like, that has to be hard on your body, I don't know. Um, yeah, but no, he
He's stayed fit all these years. If you
truly.
keep going, then you don't slow down, apparently.
Apparently. So Togo's leading the team, and the temperature had dropped toward negative 50 degrees. They're crossing Norton Sound, and he's navigating by instinct and knowledge of the trail conditions, finds safe routes along the breaking ice and through pressure ridges. They had covered about 15 miles when the ice beneath them separated, and they were created a large flow, and they were beginning to drift away from shore. So the entire sled team, like all of them, are on one ice island that is drifting away from
And they can't do anything. They just have to float away.
that. Yeah. Well, yeah, totally. So the gap between their flow and the solid ice had widened to about 5 feet. Seppala, desperate and in need of a life-saving measure, tied a long lead to Togo's harness and, hoping against hope, tossed him across 5 feet of open water. Togo,
Tossed?
yeah. Togo
Like,
splashed into the water near the edge of the solid ice, scrambled up, and planted his feet. Understanding the mission, he started to pull with the intent of like moving the flow to the shore or like to the solid ice.
yeah.
The line went taut, the flow started to move, and then the line snapped. And Seppala at this point was like, all right, this is it. Like, this is the end of the journey. He has the life-saving serum, and they are like well on their way to like
Oh my
sailing out
gosh.
to sea.
Could he throw the serum to Togo and Togo could drag it back?
Pogo, without being instructed to do so, plunged his head into the icy water and grabbed the broken end of the line in his teeth and
My good.
pulled it out onto the ice where he was. Togo then rolled the line around his shoulders to make a makeshift harness, and he started pulling. This is a real story. Like
Is
this
that true?
100. Okay, well, in every single account, it is true. Cruelest Miles, Seppala's account that like he wrote with somebody else that has all of his like direct quotes.
But isn't he the only one who saw it? Do you think he was dramatizing a little bit, perhaps? It seems incredible, like, it seems impossible.
Yeah, it does to completely seem impossible. This is like the official historical account. This is what he did. And he relentlessly pulled for nearly an hour to close the gap, enough for the sled to cross.
Wow. Wow.
And he succeeded, and the entire team made it safely to the ice solely because of Togo. Seppala wrote later on that he wished that he could give him a break, but he just couldn't. Like, they didn't have any time to spare. So as soon as they got across, Togo was strapped back into the harness in the lead dog position, and they kept on going.
Ain't no rest for the brave Togo.
Yeah, it's true. Next, they climbed Little McKinley, the next most feared part of the leg. And like I said, the face is super steep and it's completely exposed to wind. The climb is 1 mile long, steady uphill, and reaches above the timber line. Togo led this entire part as well, all without stopping. So at this point, they had had no breaks whatsoever since they started.
Whoa. Does he die at the end? If he dies when he gets back, like, if he just collapses from exhaustion and dies, I'm gonna be so upset.
So they're almost to the end of their leg of the race. So they arrived at the roadhouse in Golovin, and Seppala at that point had been on the trail for 3 days. Togo's paws were bleeding and ice had formed in his fur, but the serum was intact, and Seppala passed the serum on to Charlie Olson. Seppala
Is
and
that
his
the guy Balto?
not yet. So he doesn't hand it off directly to Balto, but he is done with his leg of the race. So no, Togo does not die from the Nome Serum Run. He is
Ew.
just way more amazing than that, which actually is also incredible that he was 12 and did all of that and didn't die.
Yeah, like, I was imagining, like, he crossed the finish line and then just died. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just I feel like I would die after that.
I would have died long before any of this happened. You know, I also would not jump out a glass window to go join a team of runners, okay? Not do any of that. The temperatures throughout Zappala's entire leg of the race never rose above -40 degrees.
I truly can't even imagine what that feels like. Like,
No, no.
what was he wearing as a human that would protect him from that?
I feel like I learned this when I learned about the Iditarod Trail in elementary school, but I think it's just a lot of layers of different fur.
Wow. That's
I mean,
like
that has to be it.
it would have to be, like, the densest fur ever. Like, I think sea otter fur is the densest fur of any animal. It would have to be sea otter fur.
Well, and I'm sure they had something for their fingers as well, because you would have to have the dexterity for, like, using the
Yeah, like, how are your
reins.
extremities still attached in negative 50 degrees? That is
I feel like there
crazy.
was a part about this in the book, and I'm forgetting it. Look at the show notes, people. I will make a note. So he handed it off to Olson, and after Olson, the serum passed to more mushers, including Edgar Collins and Charlie Evans. On February 1st, the
Did you
serum,
just say Edward Cullen?
I said Edgar Calland. It's the
I'm like,
off-brand
so
Edward Cullen.
close. That was so close. Okay, never
It's
mind.
the
I was
it's
like, is
it's
there
the
a Twilight
store
reference in here?
brand. Okay. What if though? What if Edward Cullen was a musher in the Gnome Serum Run?
Or like the
Historically,
lady
it
that
could
wrote
work.
Oh, yeah,
It could. I
'cause
feel
he's
wasn't he
so
alive
old.
in like the 19? Wasn't he born? like 1900. Edward Cullen was part of the Nome Serum Run.
That would be such a twist.
Okay, so finally, this serum reached Gunnar Kassen, a Norwegian immigrant who worked for the mining companies. Kassen had actually borrowed a team for the race, and he had borrowed the team from none other than Seppala. His lead dog was Balto, a
Oh my
3-year-old.
gosh. Wait, so Balto actually belonged to the same guy that had Togo?
Yes, and Seppala, like, didn't want Balto. He stated that he was never in a winning team in his life. Apparently,
Wow.
he wasn't very good. Like, he said that he didn't have what it took to be a racing lead dog, and he wasn't on Seppala's teams. Like, he was on teams that Seppala rented out that he didn't, like, necessarily care too much about.
No wonder he was so annoyed that Balto got all the credit. It's like, you've been slacking off all this time,
For
and just
sure.
because just because 'cause you're the one who made it back into town, like, wow, okay, I understand his frustration.
Yeah, 100%, and it's like Togo is his beloved special dog, but also, like, yeah, this 12-year-old literally saved his life, saved all of his dogs' lives, saved this serum, and, like, yeah, and then this, like, bum Balto over here. Yeah, it is, like, it's definitely personal, like, he writes about it for the rest of his life, basically, that he is, like, upset about the credit that Balto got instead of Togo. Balto's leg of the race was still really hard. I mean, every part of this was tough. And during Balto's leg of the race, a blizzard was raging. At one point, the sled overturned, and Cossin dug through the snow with his bare hands to find the serum. Around 5:30 a.m. on February 2nd, Cossin and Balto arrived in Nome. Welch brought the epidemic under control with the serum, and at this point, at least 5 had died. Numerous indigenous Alaskans likely died of diphtheria during this outbreak, but those numbers were not recorded. Hassan and Balto were greeted as heroes immediately. The relay had covered in total 674 miles in just 127 and a half hours, which is over 5 days, like just over 5 days. Balto ran 53 miles and Togo ran 261 miles. Within I know.
Obvious who ran more miles.
Within days, the story of the Serum Run had made headlines across the United States. Gunnar Kaasen and Balto, who completed the final leg of the journey, received by far the most attention. Kaasen was interviewed extensively, and Balto was photographed repeatedly with his lead musher. Stations broadcast updates, and newspapers ran front page stories. Within months, a statue of Balto was commissioned for New York City's Central Park. It was funded by public donation and the New York Times. On December 15th, 1925, 10 months after the relay, the statue was unveiled. Cossin stood next to it, and the inscription on the statue read, "Dedicated to the indomitable spirit of the sled dogs that relayed antitoxins 600 miles over rough ice, across treacherous waters, through Arctic blizzards, from Nanana to the relief of stricken Nome in the winter of 1925. Endurance, fidelity, intelligence." Isn't that so eloquent?
Wow, that is very eloquent, but it's also saying, like, this is for all the sled dogs, right?
Mhm.
Even though it's a statue of Balto.
Yeah. Yeah. But the statue bore only Balto's name and likeness. But
Gotcha.
yes, it's true. It did shout out
They're like,
all
but
the
the
dogs.
best one that we love the most, we're gonna make this statue look like him.
I really can't blame society because it's like Balto did cross the finish line. So it's like, if you don't follow the story super closely, it's like, oh, yeah, that looks like a dog who ran 600 miles. Sure. I don't know.
It's like, you know, how humans are. It's like what
Hmm.
in front of you is like the thing that gets the most attention. So it's like everybody's waiting. They want to hear how the story like ends, and then people come over the finish line. It's this guy with all his dogs, and the dog in
Yeah.
the lead is this dog. And then, like, a few days later, all the other dogs come like trailing back in, and they're exhausted, and they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
man, easy." But by that time,
They're gone.
Balto, yeah, Balto's already got like all the fame. The town's already fine. the serum has been administered and everybody's forgotten about it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, again, I feel like this story could happen today and it would be like people just don't change, it feels like. So I should note here that, like, yes, Balto was definitely given way more credit than Togo. But after the race, Seppala was invited on tour with Togo and his team of dogs, and they went and drew really large crowds. They traveled from Seattle to California and then across to New England, making appearances all along the way. They appeared at Madison Square Garden, and at the end of 1925, Togo was awarded a gold medal by none other than Roald Amundsen. Do you remember him from the beginning of our story? That's the
No,
so Roald Amundsen was the explorer who had Lindeberg get dogs for the expedition, and Lindeberg hired Seppala to train the dogs for this expedition, and then the expedition was canceled. But it was this guy's expedition. And then
wow, it came full circle.
yeah, full circle moment. They paraded through the streets of New York, and Seppala drove his team from the steps of City Hall along Fifth Avenue through Central Park.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, it was so hot. Wait, was it in the winter? The dogs were probably like,
it
"What's
was in
happening?"
winter. Yeah, it was in winter. Yeah, it was like at the end of 1925, like December 30th, I think was when he got the award. So it was cold. Right? Probably not, I mean, not as cold as they're used to, but like not ne
So, you said at the beginning that he got lots of statues. So eventually he kinda got his just rewards, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, he did, but it didn't happen for a while. It does happen. It does happen eventually. He once wrote about like his feelings about all of it. I am proud of my racing trophies, but I would trade them all for the satisfaction of knowing that my dogs and I tried honestly to give our very best in humanitarian service to our fellow man. So, like, he never felt like it had, like, totally reached the point that it deserved, like, during his lifetime. When Togo was 16 years old in 1929, his arthritis had settled into his joints, and he was suffering. He was blind, and finally, he died at the end of 1929.
Sorry, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. The headline in the New York Sun-Times the next day read, "Dog Hero Rides to His Death." And Togo was eulogized in papers across the country. He remained in Balto's shadow, but Seppala had Togo's body preserved and mounted. For years, the mounted skin was displayed at the Shelbourne Museum in Vermont. In 1960, Seppala said in an interview, "I never had a better dog than Togo. His stamina, loyalty, and intelligence could not be improved upon." In 1983 is when like Togo started to get more like recognized. Students in Wasilla, Alaska, campaigned to have Togo's mounted skin returned to Alaska from Vermont, and his preserved body is now displayed at the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race headquarters museum in Wasilla. I had said before, but they did make a movie about Togo on Disney Plus that they have since taken down, but I'm sure they'll put it back up after they read my kindly worded email.
I'm sure. I'm waiting with bated breath.
2011, Togo was named the most heroic animal of all time. And um,
By who?
Time magazine, I don't know, the people at Time magazine who vote on that. But I like it happened it was, like, written in 2011, so I looked up for a list of, like, the other most heroic animals of all time that I assumed that they did it like a yearly thing, and no other articles came up, that's the only one. So, he's the only
Was
most
that
heroic
Time
animal.
thing?
Yes, and then his descendants, Togo's descendants, contributed to the Seppala Siberian sled dog line, which is like its own, what would that be called? Like
Like
sub
its own breed?
yeah,
Or
its own breed, but like sub-breed, I guess would be like
I'm sure there's a fancy dog breed term for it.
yeah, I don't know what that would be.
I bet those cost a zillion dollars.
Yes, probably a lot. Okay, so Togo statues include one in Poland Spring, Maine, and one in Seward Park, New York City, Cleveland Metro Parks Zoo. There are several statues made in his honor, but the largest, I feel like, legacy that Togo's a part of is the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race. I think it's safe to say that a huge part of Togo's story is that he is part of something bigger than just himself. The entire sled dog race is a bunch of experts working together towards the same goal. And after the Nome Serum Run, the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race was created. It runs annually from Anchorage to Nome, and it was established largely in part to commemorate the 1925 Serum Run. This is the most direct inspiration for the race, and it includes several traditions honoring the mushers and dogs of that of the Serum Run, including the Leonhard Seppala Humanitarian Award, which recognizes mushers who provide exceptional dog care while remaining competitive. The race follows portions of the historic trail used in the Serum Run, and Nome serves as the race's finish line, which is an intentional connection from modern mushers to the Nome Serum Run of the 1925 Serum Run influenced the development of emergency delivery systems, mass immunization programs, and contributed to the history of vaccinology. The successful relay raised public awareness about the critical importance of medical preparedness, and it also served as a catalyst nationally for rethinking emergency response approaches, particularly in remote and low resource regions. So, yeah, that's our story of Togo and Seppala and cold.
Cold. That was the other character, the cold.
Seriously, can you imagine traveling for that long in nothing above -40 degrees?
I truly cannot, and I
What
don't
if you
want
had
to.
to go to the bathroom? I mean, what do you
It would
do?
it would freeze immediately upon exiting your body,
Do you
don't you
think you
think?
just wouldn't go to the bathroom? Like, do you think you'd just, like, wear a diaper? I don't
Like,
need to I don't need to include this part, but, like, can you
I
imagine?
don't know. I do not know. I do wanna say, I think it's so interesting. I had no idea that the Iditarod race, the way that it's done now, was, like, in memory of this, and I think that's really neat, like, that they have that connection, like, especially that, like, coming over the finish line into Nome, like, gives them that connection to what happened, and also all the things that you mentioned about, like, this gave people so much more thought about, "Okay, what do we do in an emergency like this in the future, and how do we prevent this from happening?" Like, I really love stories whenever it's, like, something crazy happens, but then instead of just being like, "Oh, yay, the dogs brought the thing," it's like there's some kind of positive change that reaches far beyond just that situation and just that town. I think that's really neat.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's like it's the idea of like being problem solvers, right? It's like finding the solution to the problem, but also like making sure it doesn't happen again or whatever way in whatever way, whether that's like making new plans or like encouraging ways for people to remember the event or whatever it is. Like, yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's cool to see that in such, like, a unique story too. I definitely learned about this for sure as a kid, but also definitely didn't understand, like, the impact or how just terrifying that probably would be if you were in that situation or that was your town or your family, like, that would be such a scary thing, and I'm sure too, like, now that I'm thinking about it, there are so many remote and, like, hard to access towns in Alaska, so I feel like it does make sense that this is a really important part of their history too, because it's, like, something that, like, an experience that is probably more relatable there than we would know how to relate to something like that here in, like, such a central place.
Yeah, it doesn't it's not even something that has to cross our minds with the way that the city is set up, that we live in like a large city. But yeah, there's people all over the world that don't have access to, a hospital like 15 minutes away or a freeway or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to think about how something like that could hopefully have like a positive impact on lots of people in those situations if it makes people think more about like, okay, what do we do in these situations?
Yeah, and it worked, which I feel like is the great part about it. It's like there really are like thinking of 20 people handing off something that valuable in those conditions is just crazy that that actually worked.
Yeah, there were so many things that could have gone wrong. I mean, they did, but then it really shows like the power really of like resilience, not just the dogs, like they obviously were kind of like the heroes of like actually pulling the sled and everything and doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but the people involved too were so resilient to like problem solve on the fly when they were in these like really harsh conditions. And yeah, it is amazing that it worked. I mean, I guess if it didn't work, we probably wouldn't be talking about it.
We wouldn't be
So,
talking about it. Yeah, I'll include pictures in the show notes, but there are some really incredible pictures of Seppala, but also of different mushers and their dogs, like along the trail. And it is eerie to look at. Like maybe eerie isn't the right word, but I really can't think of another word because it's just so vast and white around this like little person and little dogs compared to just the vastness that is like that part of the world that it is, yeah, crazy to think of how resilient you would have to be just to like live there, like just to live there and then to have that role like would be a very like just would take a very strong individual.
what's this? Okay. Should
I
it be
know.
different? Like, be like Togo, not like Balto, who's stealing fame.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I don't know. I don't know. It takes more brainstorming. Maybe this just means we're gonna have the best sign off of all time. Whenever we figure it out, it's just gonna be epic. But I
You
don't
know
have it.
that song that's like H-O-T-T-O to
Oh, of
the O.
course I know that song.
Yeah, so we could say H-O-T-T-O Togo.
Togo spells Togo. You wouldn't even have to say it. It already says hot Togo,
Yeah,
hot
exactly.
Togo. But oh, you know what? But it needs to be cold Togo because he's so COLDTOGO. You can take some cold to go. Okay, all right. We gotta go to bed. I love you.
Thank you for telling me this story. I love you.
Bye.